Welcome everyone to the Lofi Poli Sci podcast. I'm your host, Michael Pickering. That's right, Lo-Fi's and low fidelity, low quality, in-your-face, messy-as-can-be global news show. Here we're going to talk about that famous question, what's going on in the world today? We'll be covering 5 headlines from across the globe and then choose one to go into a more detailed analysis. The news, fresh off the press. Source, Reuters, World Section. Police file case against Indian news anchor for inciting hatred. A popular news anchor had reportedly crossed the line legally by inciting religious hatred with the criticism of politicians' reactions, or lack thereof, to the death of 2 Hindu holy men via a mob, the same incident we've been talking about for the past 2 weeks. The implications. The news anchor is a popular Hindi nationalist television anchor. As nationalist movements across the globe have risen in popularity in the past decade, so too has the question, how far is too far when going unhinged, shouting, yelling, being derogatory versus being discriminatory, free speech versus hate speech. This is not a new topic for listeners, but what may be new is our understanding that laws in countries vary on this subject a lot. Inciting religious tension or hatred in India is not taken lightly, as that tension has existed since the creation of the Pakistani and Indian states, though that's a topic for another time. Next up, source, AP News International. Greenland ready to take U.S. aid but won't accept conditions. That's right, Greenland and the U.S. are back in the news again, after about a year since the U.S. president stated interest in buying it, though it's part of Denmark and not for sale. And guess what? It's still part of Denmark and still not for sale. The implications. The U.S. opened a new consulate there and is planning on spending up to $12 million in aid in the region. Why, you may ask, is it? Is it because we like polar bears and penguins? And yes, I know, penguins are in the Antarctic and polar bears are in the Arctic. I make this mistake purposely, so I have reason to say so, and let everyone know that these 2 wonderful creatures live in similar environments, but are across the globe from each other, except at zoos. But that, too, is a discussion for a different day. I digress. So why is the U.S. so interested in Greenland? A question to Lo-Fi Poli Sci students out there. Anyone keeping up with Russian activity in the Arctic? Maybe we should, because it appears someone in the U.S. government finally has as well. We'll be keeping an eye on the Arctic for certain. And penguins, and polar bears. It's Thursday, Lo-Fi listeners, meaning we're bringing you Thursday's feature of Reporters Without Borders, focusing on Costa Rica today. Geography lesson in Central America. To the north, Costa Rica borders Nicaragua. To the east, Caribbean Sea. To the southeast, Panama. And the west and southwest, the Pacific Ocean. In 2018, Costa Rica had a World Bank recorded GDP per capita of just over $12,000 a year, making it a middle-of-the-way country as far as economic development goes. Just some comparative analysis for all you listeners out there. Let's remember that Reporters Without Borders ranks 180 countries and territories by level of media freedom in the country, both constitutionally and in practice. And in 2019, Costa Rica comes in at number 10 out of 180 countries and territories across the globe. Below it at number 11 is Estonia, and above it at number 9 is Belgium. Being number 10, having moved up 3 places since 2018, makes Costa Rica one of the freest media environments in the world, and the freest media system in the Western Hemisphere. And yes, really, Lo-Fi listeners. To quote Reporters Without Borders, the Latin American country with the best record of respecting human rights and freedoms of expression, Costa Rica, is a remarkable exception in a region characterized by corruption, violent crime, and constant violence against the media. Journalists are free to work, and progressive legislation regulates the freedom of information. Ownership of Costa Rica's media is nonetheless concentrated in very few hands, limiting media pluralism to a significant degree. End quote. Well done, Costa Rica, well done. And a side note about media ownership concentration. This is not a Costa Rican-specific phenomenon. Rather, media ownership globally is becoming more concentrated among media conglomerates. And now for our Headline in the Spotlight segment. Source, BBC News, World Section. Syria Civil War. Germany holds unprecedented state torture trials. 2 individuals, thought to be intelligence officers for the current ruling Assad regime, are now officially on trial for crimes against humanity. These 2 men left the war, applied for asylum in Germany, and were arrested for these crimes in 2019. President Assad of Syria has denied these claims. The background and implications of this story. The Syrian civil war has its beginning rooted in the Arab Springs of anti-authoritarian protests started in the country in 2011. Those protests were brutally repressed by the Assad regime, and then the civil war began. This war has gone on for 9 years, with other countries like Russia, the US, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iran, and several others, all taking active roles in the civil war, which perpetuates the intensity of the war itself. There has long been claims and reports of crimes against humanity and international laws being broken, potentially by both sides as well as outside actors. We'll be watching very closely as this case develops, the first of potentially many more to come of trials over crimes against humanity in the world today. And a last piece of news from CNN World Section. Scientists discover a new snake and name it Salazar Slytherin. That's right, all you Harry Potter fans out there. And for those that aren't, this name is a character in the books and films. But fans of Harry Potter, you get your magic made reality. This was a new species of green pit viper in India. And yes, they are venomous. The implications. I think it's fantastic that scientists today are moving away from old Latin and Greek names for things that none of us can pronounce or know what they mean, and begin moving to something more fun and rememberable. Side note, if you are one of the few people who know Latin and Greek and can translate scientific names for genus and species, good for you. We like you as well. But naming things in the world in a fashion that everyday ordinary people can understand, relate to, and have fun with only encourages people to take more interest in the world in which we live. Well done, scientist. Well done. However, Gandalf is better. And that's a brief snapshot of what's going on in the world today. Please write in with your comments, questions, and requests for countries of our news segments to Lofi Poli Sci at planetmail.com. That's Lofi, L-O-F-I, Poli, P-O-L-I, Sci, S-C-I, at planetmail.com. Let me say thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, wash those hands, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Lofi Poli Sci podcast. Pickering, signing off.